Welcome to the Miami Jewish Film Festival, the world's largest film festival of its kind. We want to thank all the members, our sponsors, the community partners, all of you film lovers, and especially our presenting sponsors, the Center for the Advancement of Jewish Education and the Greater Miami Federation for their continued support throughout all these years. My name is Firma Gottlieb. I'm an addiction coach working with Family Recovery Resources, as well as a member of the Orthodox community. And I'm so excited to be moderating a virtual conversation with Anna Oliker, the director of the documentary film Kosher Rehab, which is premiering at this year's film festival. Wow, Anna, this is such a powerful film. Can you tell us about yourself, where you're from, where you've lived, and how you got into filmmaking?
Yes, hi. It's so nice to be here. Thank you. So I moved to Israel from America, and I've been living here for about 25 years. And I became Orthodox when I moved to Israel, slowly but surely. And I'm part of the Orthodox community in Jerusalem. And I have, thank God, 5 children going through or have gone through the Orthodox school system. And I came upon Eric when a friend of mine did an article in the Jerusalem Post about the hidden opiate epidemic in Jerusalem. And I wanted to speak to him because it was at a time that a 16-year-old girl passed away in our neighborhood, and everybody was very shocked. This was already, we're talking like 6 years ago, and everybody was very shocked. How could this happen to us? We don't have these things happen. That's for the other people. It's not for us. And people were just didn't really know what to say or how to talk about it. And in general, the whole drug addiction and recovery in Israel very much lags behind America. It's not like, in America, I feel like if you have somebody who's suffering, they would know immediately who to call. But in Israel, there really aren't those kind of resources yet. So after that, I had a problem with one of my daughters that they wanted to, throw her out of the school system. She had a learning disability. And when I started fighting them about that, I saw how many girls were actually thrown out of the school system, and also boys from the Orthodox system, and they were in the streets, and the streets are very welcoming because they have their own culture. And unfortunately, there was a lot of drugs. So when I read the article that my friend wrote in the Jerusalem Post about Eric, I wanted to meet him. And also at the time, I was like, I had finished making my first film, and I was like, oh, maybe I can help you. Maybe I can help you make a promotional video, because he told me that the rehab is free, and they didn't have any money at the time. And they still struggle with money. And then after I came and I spoke to him and I met him and I made him this promotional video, like I couldn't leave because he doesn't speak Hebrew. He was alone at the time by himself with a house full of guys. And I just fell in love with him and with everyone. And I said, this is a story that really needs to be told. And I'm just so grateful that they were able to give me their trust and the time that it took me, which was, almost 3 years, to literally sit there for many, many days and many, many, many days, and to hear their stories. And we still have another 280 hours of film. So this is just the tip of it, really.
Wow. It's so moving. It's so powerful. And there's such a tremendous need for this to be brought to the attention of the public, of the Jewish communities in particular. When Eric is looking for drugs, for people, and he said he goes to the ambulance drivers and he goes to the Hatzalah driver, and the Hatzalah driver says, they're not going to call me, they're going to call the ambulance. Because they don't want anyone to know. It was such a short, but such a poignant take on what's going on. There's so much denial, and there's so much fear of being uncovered for being less than perfect. It's hard. It's very hard. So Clearly, you know, your devotion to Eric and to his young men is is admirable and beautiful. I want to know if there's if you think that having filmed this will have a positive impact on AZ's growth and their funding.
Well, I'll tell you that one of the things that we discussed a lot, but it's very difficult to bring that in a 60-minute film, is really there's an additional story here behind the scenes, which is, you touched on it a little bit, which is Eric's, you know, fight against the rehab system, so to speak, that are taking so much money from families. We've had guys in the house that this was the last place after they've been to every single place, and their parents spent $500 to $1 million on trying to get them clean and sober. And because it is such a lucrative thing, and Eric actually calls it junkie trafficking, like this person gets a commission and a referral, and you know, and unfortunately that is how the system works. So for Eric to have his model, which is based on the Leah House and the Absolute House in Cleveland, where he got sober, there is like no institutional place for it. The government doesn't accept it. And the government conditions that need to be met, Eric doesn't think are useful for this purpose, because the recovery rate in the AZ House is something like 60%, which is unbelievable.
Very high.
And I think, you know, the reason for that is because the guys run the house, and then they become responsible for the new guys that come in, and it's a family, and it's growing and growing and growing. And it's just a beautiful thing, you know, to see them kind of making their own little community. And but unfortunately that does not translate into getting money. So somehow God always helps them at the end of the month. They're always able to cover the rent, even though they've gone, you know, Eric and Brian, who run the house together, you know, they've gone months and months without getting paid, without getting a salary, but they're just so committed and dedicated to the cause. And there have been people who have offered Eric, like, come and run, you know, this rehab, and you know, and will charge, but he will not charge the parents under any circumstances. He believes that that taints the clinical aspect of it, that, you know, it's like almost like a certain like entitlement to something. And the lack of entitlement is the number one thing. It's accountability, responsibility, discipline. This is what he teaches the guys. And then when they go out to work after 3 months and continue to live there for like another maybe 4 or 5 months, they also learn the value of money. He teaches them to save money. It's like things that we don't really see in a regular, you know, ordinary clinical system, but it's hard to bring that into other places when we're talking about so much money being.
Sure. Sure, that's another question that I have, but I want to save that for a little bit later. It's not clear how much of the film was candid and how much of it was scripted to bring home the message. Can you explain your process?
Yes. So my process was always from the beginning, it was going to be a fly on the wall. I was going to just film, you know, what was going on. And unfortunately, I was not able to bring all these incredible and amazing groups that they do in the house, which is they do a lot of groups, because it's, you know, you can't just sit and watch. I mean, I can, but I'm trying to think, none of it was really scripted, except the one conversation. It wasn't even so much scripted as I asked Eric and Brian to talk about the money, because when you're trying to do the fly on the wall thing, it's like you can miss something that's really important. You're like, oh, darn it, I just missed that. You know, can we do that again? But it's like, you can't do it again. It's not the same. But the only thing I think that was kind of like stage, so to speak, is when they were sitting outside and they said, you know, we're worried about the bills. Because I said, we need to show that, you know, that you are concerned. And Eric's like, well, I'm not concerned. I said, yeah, but you have a problem, because when I first came to the house, they had a stack of bills like this. And Eric was like, I'm scared to open them. It's all going to cut off the electricity. But there always, you know, is a fear of that. So that was really the only thing. But everything else that we did, I mean, these guys, like, honestly, like I say to people, you could just put the camera on them. They will sing, they will dance. They are so full of life and so full of energy, and they so want to be loved, you know? it's like I get like teary, like even like speaking about them, because they've gone through so much. They've
Yeah.
gone through so much. And you know, that said, I did have pressure a little bit from the Israeli film community, which is very secular and very liberal, and they wanted like, bring us the dirt, like, you know, where was the abuse, what was it like, you know? And I kept saying, that's not what it's about. It's about, you know, bringing somebody back to life. It's about the resurrection of a person. They're not just going to go digging in their past. But it wasn't very difficult to get these beautiful moments from them, because they're just so raw and so vulnerable, especially coming from insular communities. They don't have the filters, you know, that people learn to put on. Like, they don't have the masks.
Sure.
And so yeah, yeah, I hope
Wow.
I answered that.
I'm curious. One of the features of the Orthodox culture is a really strong positive value associated with having large families, and the majority of members of the community are well-adjusted, healthy, intact families who might consider the fact that a couple of times there's this mention of there's 13 people in my family and I didn't get enough attention, et cetera, and so forth. They might think, are you portraying large families as dysfunctional? And I just would love your comment on this.
So this is something that Eric and I discuss a lot, because Eric, even though he's not religious per se, but he's always kind of like close to it, and he's very close to God, obviously, you know, in order to like have a 12-step program. But Eric is very, very pro the Jewish Orthodox community. He just got married actually a month ago in Baltimore. His girlfriend is from a very, very religious family in Baltimore, and it was a beautiful Orthodox wedding, and it was just a beautiful thing. But the reason that it was important for us to bring this aspect is because, for me personally, is because I kind of felt that people would blame the parents almost immediately. Like, how can you throw this child out of the house? How could you do this to your child? And for me as a mother, like, I understand what it's like when you have a child that is causing problems to the family and to the others, and there's another 4, 5, 6, 8 children, and it's not their fault that
Sure. How much
nobody wants to see. Nobody wants to see them. Like, don't go to their house. We can't play with them. Oh, she's not going to get a shidduch. Oh, it's going to be on the shidduch resume. He's this and that. And that was more towards, because when I screened the film here in Jerusalem at the film festival, when it premiered in Israel, and secular people came to me and they said, we never understood how one child can affect everybody else. In the beginning, we would say, oh, these parents are so cruel. How could they send them away? How could they send them to Israel? But we understand that if there's another 8, 9 kids, and actually I didn't have enough space, and unfortunately in the film, to put some of the mothers in, but the mothers, would say, like, they would have to go into the room to see if the kid was still alive. They knew he was using heroin, and they knew that he could just die. And in the middle of the night, would wake up, they would be opening the door, but they still had to function the whole day for the other children. And they had to bring, simcha and joy and all the other things, but their mind was so worried about the one kid. So it's a very, it's not, God forbid, a derogatory statement about the community, but it is maybe a plea for some kind of help and acceptance in the community, to understand that if one child is having a problem because they're not like the other children, the children who are, can follow the line, and they're kind of can fit themselves in the box, they don't have a problem. But the child who can't manage to fit himself in the box, and right away gets labeled, I have a son who's now, thank God, 18 years old, and he had very bad ADHD, and they were always, you're going to stand outside the classroom, and he used to come home and he used to say, I'm bad, Tati doesn't like me, Tati doesn't like me. And it's we're not here to change the whole educational system. And I think things are changing a little bit, and they understand that not every child can sit and learn, Daf Gemara for 12 hours, and they need other things. It doesn't mean that, they don't have a a purpose for God and for the Jewish people. Like some of these guys will, cry to me and they say, why can't I learn? This is the only thing my father wants from me is that I learn, and I can't do it. Does God hate me? Because, is this going to be my life? And I tell them, no, we had the 12 tribes, people
Yeah.
had different roles. Like you have an amazing role. Like, Shepsel, for example, who's in the film, he is amazing with handicapped children, handicapable people, and people who have all kinds of different things that other people can't find a way to speak to them. And he hugs them and he dances with the wheelchairs on shop, at Shabbat dinners. Like they go and they volunteer, and it's a beautiful thing. But it took him like a while to be like, I should be in Shiva. It's this idea, something's wrong with me. Something's wrong with me. So it maybe is like a little bit of a plea to like, these children also have a place, but we need to make it the value of what they do has to be also high enough. We all always think like, learning Torah is the ultimate value in the Orthodox community, but there's also a place for you, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So
I had no idea who I was interviewing. When I see your empathy and your intention and your commitment, it's no wonder that the documentary came out the way it did. It's just so powerful. I want to thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And please come visit. Please, you're in the field. I didn't know that you were in the field as an addiction counselor. That's amazing. Come and visit.
Looking forward to it. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
A final question I have for you is, it's interesting that 15 Americans needed to come to Israel to clean up their acts. Do you think that being in Israel is an integral aspect of the rehabilitative environment? And in the film,
well,
the AZ house.
I'll tell you that, Eric believes that people should be a little bit away from home, maybe not like this far away from home, but I think the way that the AZ house is run is maybe it's easier in Israel. Maybe it also works because it's in Israel, because from day one, Eric takes everybody to an AA meeting in the center of Jerusalem. There's an English speaking meeting that's about 60 or 70 people. So from day one, they're able to connect to other people who are also Orthodox or were Orthodox. And a lot of the boys do come back to Orthodoxy, which is amazing because nobody would have, ever predicted it. And so they do have the ability to form this own community. It's all very close geographically and otherwise. I don't really know how in America, I mean, maybe it would also work, but I think, and also there's the ability to take them on trips. Like Eric takes them camping and he takes them to different places, and it's just smaller. I guess it's just smaller here. So, and to Meron, he takes them every year to Meron. They were actually there with the Meron disaster 2 years ago. Thank God, they were okay, but they love all the music and the food and everything about the community. They love it so much. And in Israel, it is maybe a little bit easier to be able to participate.
Sure. And I want to thank you so much, really, for bringing a really critical and yet traditionally very hushed subject to the attention of our viewers and handling it so beautifully. Thank you, Anna Oliker.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And again, like I always, Eric always tells me to say, if anybody needs help, you're not alone. Please reach out. The AZ house is, you can talk to someone, you can pick up the phone. Somebody will always be there to talk to you and to help you.
Beautiful.
So thank you so much.
Thank you. And I will see you in Israel. I will.
Okay, I'm counting on it.
To all the members, sponsors, community partners, volunteers, and all of you film lovers for participating in the Miami Jewish Film Festival.